Good morning, students. I welcome you all to the session. Today, we'll be going to discuss regarding different concepts. Like what are the different concepts are memory and storage management, protection and security, distributed and special purpose systems. These are the things we are going to learn in this today's class. So first of all, we'll be going to see regarding the memory management. Fine. What do you mean by a memory and what are the things you will be going to have in this memory management? So all the things we'll be going to see over here in this memory management issues. Fine. So when we are going to deal with this memory management, so what do you mean by a memory? So what do you mean by a memory? Memory is used for storing the data or storing the information, so that we call it is like for storage purposes we'll be going to call it as a memory. Fine. So like how many types of memories we are having, so that we have to know mainly. So memory is of two types. The first one is main memory and the second one is secondary memory, is it not? So these are the two different types of memories we are having. So main memory is also called as, we call it as a physical memory. Fine. So whenever the CPU want to execute any sort of a program or a process, that program should be dumped onto the main memory. Until unless the program is not there in the memory, will not going to be executed. So that is the concept of main memory. So but what is the drawback you will be going to face in the main memory? So the drawback you will be going to face in the main memory is the main memory capacity is very small when compared to the secondary storage devices. So that is the reason why we have gone for secondary storage devices. Even though we are having the main memory, why we have been gone for secondary storage devices in the sense the main memory capacity is very small. It cannot accommodate much and much of the instructions onto the main memory. So that is the reason why we are going for the secondary memory. So these are the two different types of memories we are having. So here we will be going to see what is a memory management. So actually this is one of the important functionality of an operating system. As we have seen in your first class, what are the functionalities of an operating system means, we have seen that process management, memory management, protection and security, like all these things are the functionalities of a memory management. Here we will be going to see the basic concept of memory management. This memory management, you will be going to have a separate unit, and in that separate unit you will be going to study in detail regarding the memory management. So today we will be going to have a brief introduction regarding the memory management and the storage management. Fine. So in this memory management, the task of the operating system, what is the task of the operating system? These task of the operating system is like to accommodate multiple processes into the main memory. Fine. So if you are going to have the main memory, so suppose this is the main memory. Fine. So this is the main memory. So if you want to execute any of the process, that process should be in this main memory. Suppose p1, p2, all these are different processes. These different processes should be in the main memory. Fine. So but what I am saying is the main memory capacity is very very small. We cannot accommodate much of the process, but the operating system responsibility is to manage the memory, to manage all the processes in this small amount of memory only. Like how we are managing all the processes, we will be going to see in detail, in clearly when it comes to the memory management unit. So what is the drawback here we are getting? But he, as the main memory is small, we can accommodate only a less number of processes, but not more number of processes. If we are accommodating only less number of processes, what the drawback you will be going to face? More number of processes will be in waiting state. Why? Because all these processes requires the CPU time. So suppose all these are the processes, these processes requires the CPU time. But when the CPU will execute, the CPU will execute when the processes are there in the main memory. If the processes are there in the secondary memory, the processor CPU won't execute. So what the operating system will do? Operating system will take one process and keep it in the main memory, and will take another process and keep it in the main memory. Like that the operating system is going to do. If the space is full, then we can't accommodate all this process. Now what is the situation of all these processes? All these processes are in waiting state. So this is the drawback. We shouldn't be occurring in the memory management. So in order to overcome this, what are the things we are doing? What are the methods we are following in order to make the processor as much busy as possible? So that is the concept of memory management. So memory needs to be allocated efficiently in order to pack as many processes as possible. So that is the task of this operating system. Thus operating system is the one which is going to see that the memory should be organized in a well defined manner, so that the processor shouldn't be idle at a particular should not be idle for a single instance of time. The processor should be as much busy as possible. So that is the thing you will be going to have in the main memory concept. So next comes the, what do you mean by the main memory, and what is the thing you will be going to have in the main memory. So as I have said you before, the main memory is also called as the physical memory. So this main memory we can also call it as a physical memory. So this is the memory which is internal to the computer. So in the main we call it as a RAM also, fine, which is internal to the computer. So as we have said here, the main memory is also called as a RAM. The computer is able to change only when the data is present in the RAM only, but not in the secondary storage devices. So the computer can change the data or can do any sort of things with the data when the data or the program present in the main memory, but not in the secondary memory. So that's the reason if any program wants to execute, what we are doing, we are taking the programs from the secondary memory onto the main memory, and then the CPU is going to execute the task in the main memory. This is how the things are going to be done. So all the programs are loaded in the main memory for execution. Sometimes complete program may not be loaded onto the main memory. Why? Because of the space is very small. So only a part of a program has been loaded into the main memory, and when it is called by the program, this mechanism we call it as a dynamic loading. So sometimes a certain part of the program is loaded into the main memory, but when it is called by the program, this mechanism we call it as a dynamic loading. So this is how we will be going to have the main memory. I'll be going to show over here, fine. Okay, fine. So that is the reason why we are going for the main memory. So in this, most of the schemes, a kernel occupies a fixed portion. Here I am telling you this. So here you are going to have the main memory, fine. This is the main memory, and here you are going to have the secondary memory. So this secondary memory is going to have number of processes, and main memory also going to have the number of processes. Suppose here P1, P2, P3 and P4. So what are the drawback of main memory is, the main memory capacity is very small. Why? Because we cannot accommodate more number of instructions. So this is the drawback of the main memory. So here we will be going to have the operating system. So what is the task of this operating system is, this operating system is responsible for the main memory to be busy always, or for the processor to be busy always. Why the processor should be busy? In the sense, in order to increase the performance, in order to increase the reliability of the system, we have to make the processor as much busy as possible. So this main memory we call it as a physical memory, So suppose we are having process P1, P2, P3 and P4. So uh, now we want to load P5 onto the main memory, but here only the four processes can accommodate. There is no place for fifth processes. So it is the responsibility of the operating system in order to make space for the process P5. What the operating system will do is, now it will follow the concept of swapping. So what do you mean by a swapping? Swapping includes swap in and swap out. These are the two things a swapping contains. Swap in the sense taking the process from secondary memory to the main memory. This is swap in. And removing the process from secondary main memory to the secondary memory, we call it as swap out. Suppose I have to create a place for process P5, but here only four processes can fit in this main memory. What the operating system will do is, it will follow some algorithms. That means the shortest job first, or first the job which is not going to be utilized for the much amount of time. Suppose for example, this P3 process is not being used more frequently. So what this operating system will do is, it will remove this P3 process and it will allocate this P5 process here, and it will remove the P3 process from main memory to the secondary memory. So now P5 is in main memory, so the CPU can execute with this P5 process. This is how the operating system is very much responsible for the memory management. Fine. And next one is the storage management. So what do you mean by a storage management? The storage management is defined as it refers to the management of data storage equipments that are used to store the data. So storage management is nothing but in order to store the data. So there are many key attributes for this storage management. The first and the foremost thing is performance. So performance is nothing but, so the amount of work, useful work we have done in the computer, that we call it as a performance. Performance in the sense, performance is calculated by like how the system is going to be active. So is the system is going to be in ideal state, or is the processor is going to be in active state? If the processor is keep on busy doing the things, then we say that the performance of the system is very high. If you are going to do n number of instructions per unit of time, we say that the throughput is very high. So performance mainly depends on the CPU. CPU should be very much fast, and CPU should not be ideal at any particular instance of time. So by seeing that, we call it as a performance. So for this storage management, the performance is one of the key attribute in order to achieve the storage management. And next one is reliability. So what do you mean by reliability? Reliability is the probability of the system. So what do you mean by the probability of the system? In the sense, for example, um, if you are using your mobile phone, so if you are using your mobile phone, so when we are using your mobile phone, so you are going to open different apps. So suppose you have opened WhatsApp. Fine. So how many times you open the WhatsApp, irrespective of number of times, the WhatsApp should work properly, should open properly, should do our things properly. So that is the reliability. Reliability in the sense, like how many times we do it. Suppose if you are taking a normal C program, addition program, suppose in that C program I have added 2 plus 3, the result should be 5 only. So how many times I have done this program, my result should be 5 only. It shouldn't get 4 or it shouldn't get 6. So this type of thing we call it as a reliable. How we say that the system is reliable? In the sense, the system will produce the correct output up to some given time. So how much time we are giving, also the system should be giving the same output irrespective of number of times we operated that one. And next one is the reliability. sorry, recoverability is nothing but like the system should come over from the corruption or come over from the damage from the secondary storage devices. Suppose it should recoverability in the sense how much the thing it has to retrieve the data, how even though the system has been crashed, so even though system has been crashed, we have to be in a position to retrieve the data, so that we call it as a recoverability. All these things are the attributes of a storage management. So in order to have the storage management to be storage management in the sense storing of data, in order to have the things to be done perfectly, what are the attributes we need? The first attribute is the performance. The performance of the processor should be high. Why? Because like in order to do more and more tasks, the performance should be high. Next one is reliability. Reliability in the sense, even though how many times we operate the system should function in a same way. When we operate it now, it should function properly. When we operate for the next after 3 years, like it is not working properly, in the sense we shouldn't say that the system is reliable. When we can say that the system is reliable in the sense, even though how many times we have executed, the system should give the same output, so that we call it as a reliability. Recoverability in the sense, suppose if the system has gone through some crash, if the system has some failure, so is there possibility of retrieving the data? That retrieving capacity should be there, though that we call it as a recoverability. And finally, the capacity. So when we are talking regarding the storage management, storage in the sense we are storing some data onto the hard disk or anything, fine. So when we are storing the data, first of all, what is the thing we have seen? So for example, when we are purchasing a pen drive, so what the thing we will be going to do, will we take 1 GB or 2 GB pen drive? We will be opting for 16 GB, 20 GB pen drives. Why? Because like we have to store and lots of data. If you are taking a 2 GB pen drive, if you are purchasing 2 GB pen drive, we can store only less amount of information. If you want to store more amount of information, the space won't be there. So what we'll do, we'll be going to purchase, suppose for example, if you have purchased this 16 GB of pen drive, like we can store huge amount of data, so that is the capacity. So when we are going for the storage management, capacity also plays a vital role in the storage management. And next one is protection and security. So all will think that protection and security are equal, and sometimes they say that this protection and security are same, but the thing is the protection and security are not at all same. We have a slight difference between the protection and security. So in protection and security we had a slight thing. So when it comes to the protection, we call internal. When it comes to the security, we call it as an external. So let me give one common example to you. Suppose when we open a browser, suppose when we open a browser here, so this is the browser. So when we are typing some HTTP, some www dot, here you will be going to find a symbol, like here like that you will be going to find a symbol, lock symbol, secure symbol you will be going to find. So that we call it as a security. Externally we are going externally. So this is externally, this is when we are going, when we are searching for some any sort of a website, and that website people will be going to take some security measures. So this symbol you will be going to find out, like this symbol you will be going to find out, this is the security. For each and every time you find the symbol, so this symbol is the security. Security in the sense like we suppose when we take an organization, so in an organization, will we provide protection or will we provide security for the systems? We'll be providing security for the systems but not the protection. So when we are talking overall, externally, overall, we say that it is the security. fine. Like when we call our watchman as security or protection man or a security man, like we say that he is a security. Why? Because he is look aftering the overall college or overall things, that we call it as a security. But when it comes to the protection, protection in the sense or we are going to like internally, if you are going to do, if you are going to protect some data, or if internally if you are going to hide some data, we say that it as an protection. So that is the major difference between the protection and security. And privacy is also the thing, it's when it comes to our personal use, we say that it is a privacy. So when we want to keep some settings, when we are opening the Google and we want to keep some settings, like if you want to clear the watch history, if you want to clear the search history, that is the privacy. We are working for ourselves, for not for the whole, that we call it as a privacy. So that is the, there will be a minute thread line between all these things: protection, security, authentication, authorization. We will be going to find a small thread line gap between all these things. Clear? Security in the sense externally, if you are providing the security for overall things, we call it as a security. When it comes to the internal things, we call it as a protection. That is the major difference between the protection and security. So computer system consists of many resources. As we know, it is of they'll be going to have the hardware resources and they'll be going to have the software resources. What are the hardware resources? The CPU, mouse, keyboard, like printer, plotter, scanner, all this comes under the hardware resources. When it comes the software resources, what are the files we are using and what are the programs we are maintaining, the resources to be protected from authorized users, and these comes under the software resources. These software resources to be protected, they shouldn't nobody should use these resources by their own, some they should be protected. So that is the major difference between the protection and security. And protection refers to the mechanism of controlling the accessing of program. So as I have said you, when we want to give some privacy protection things to our Google, like who clears the watch history, search history, so it is going to control the accessing of the program. So the main goal is in order to prevent the unauthorized access. So nobody according to their wish, they shouldn't come and access the system. So they should have some authority in order to access the system. That is the protection. And when it comes to the security requirements, so we are having some common goals of security. Some common goals are, the first thing is the secrecy. Secrecy is the practice of hiding information. So when we are going to hide the information, so we don't have that much problem with hiding information, then we call it as a secrecy. When it comes to the privacy, information privacy is to right to have some control over our personal, as I have said you. So privacy in the sense like our personal, suppose we want some data to be hiding from other people who are viewing in our mobile, some photos like or some of the data we want to hide it, that personally we, if you are hiding that, we call it as a privacy. And secrecy in the sense that the secrecy means like even though that person has an authorized to see that, even though he is a authorized person, but we are not giving rights, to access the information, that we call it as a secrecy. So that is the thin line between the secrecy and privacy. Secrecy means hiding of information, and privacy comes under also hiding of information. Secrecy means even though that person is having the authority to access the information, but we are not showing that data to him, that we call it as a secrecy. Privacy in the sense for our own personal use, when we are going to make things to be controlling for our personal use, that we call it as a privacy. Authenticity, integrity and confidentiality. So what do you mean by authenticity? So authenticity in the sense the property of being genuine. So genuinity we call it as an authenticity. So before opening anything, they has to authenticate. So if the proper person is verified and trusted only, then we are making him to access some sort of some information. So that is the authentication or authenticity, we call it as a same. Authenticity means authentication in the sense, in order to access this particular information, the person should be authorized, that is authenticity. Integrity in the sense, like suppose integrity in the sense, it shouldn't change its form actually. Suppose if I want to maintain a data, that original data should be original only, I shouldn't do any sort of modifications for the data what I have been stored, that we call it as an integrity. Integrity in the sense, in the short way we can say it as a remains same, we call it as a integrity. This means that the system must not modify or make any changes, we call it as an integrity. Or in simple we can say that the data should remain same, so that we call it as a integrity. And next one is confidentiality. Confidentiality means the data should be controlled by the accessible and authorized people only, that we call it as a confidentiality. So these are the some of the things when we comes under the security mechanisms. How we are going to provide the security for the things is by making secrecy and by making use of privacy, authenticity, confidentiality and integrity. We'll be going to provide security for our systems. And next comes the distributed systems and special purpose systems. What are distributed systems? So the main concept of distributed system is very simple. Like the systems are located at different places. So distributed in the sense, as the name itself indicates, the systems are located at different places, but still these systems can communicate by making use of message passing. So by making use of message passing, this these systems will communicate. This is one system which is somewhere else, this is the second system, and this is the third system. These are, as the name itself indicates, distributed system is distributed somewhere or the other. So these system components located on different machines, but they communicate and coordinate in with each other. Like how much and how they will communicate in the sense, they are appearing as a single system. Even though we are having the systems distributed, but we'll be going to appear it as a single system. That is the main advantage of a distributed system. So processes will communicate with each other through communication lines, we call it as loosely coupled systems also, we call it as. So by making use of this message passing, the processes can communicate with one another. So these are the one of the important systems. When we are going to have the distributed systems, from anywhere else we can communicate with other system. So that is the main advantage we are having with the distributed system. And some of the advantages are resource sharing facility. A user at one site maybe use the resources of the user at another site. So as I have said you, so here it is the one system, here it is the second system, and here is the third system. This first system, second system and third system, this first person can make use of resources of second person. This second person can make the use of the resources of the first person, but they have located in some in India, some in UK and some in Canada, something like that. Even though they are distributed in different places, they can share the resources. So this is how the distributed system is. So speed up the exchange of data with one another through electronic mails. So that is how we get the emails. Even though we are far away from our friends, through mail we are going to connect. How is it possible? In the sense, by making use of distributed system. And another main advantage is the failure of one system doesn't affect the another system. Suppose if this third system gets crashed, the by making use of this second system and the first system, we can complete our task. we can't wait for the third system. So that is the major advantage of using the distributed system. So by making use of this, you can provide better services to customer, and there won't be any delays. So these are the advantages of distributed systems. And finally, you are going to have the special purpose systems. So these special purpose systems are based upon their computational speed, usage and hardware. So when it comes to the speed is going to be high, usage is very much high, and the hardware also. So these are the some different special purpose systems we are having. The first one is real time systems. Real time systems in the sense, for example, these real time systems will be completing it task very specifically. Suppose when we are seeing in aircrafts in the sense the landing of airplanes and everything, there should be specific time for each and everything. So if the time of landing is of 10 a.m. in the sense, it has to land at 10. If the time is of 10:04 in the sense, it has to land at 10:04 a.m. only. So it shouldn't be any nanoseconds difference also shouldn't be there. Embedded systems. What are embedded systems in the sense? The best examples are when you are taking the home appliances. Suppose if you take a refrigerator is the best example, or washing machines also examples of embedded systems. Why? Because the software has embedded in itself the washing machine. By making use of that small circuit, you will be going to do the things automatically. Embedded in the sense all combined together and installed. So that is the embedded systems. Multimedia systems, as we all know, multimedia is very trending. These multimedia systems creates a lots of work that is going to be make very helpful and easy. Next one is the handheld portable systems, like pads, tabs, all this comes under the handheld portable systems. These are the different special purpose systems we are having. Real time systems in the sense the result should be correct, result should be produced within a deadline. Suppose if 10:04 in the sense, there is by 10:04 it has to wind up. Multimedia in the sense, like they'll be going to handle the multimedia data, including the conventional data, normal data. Embedded systems in the sense some processor capable of having a limited set of instructions. These instructions are going to be embedded in a particular chip. Next one, handheld systems in the sense the pads, pocket PCs, all these things will be coming across this handheld systems. So these are the different things we'll be going to have in this distributed and special purpose systems. So by making use of these systems, you will be going to do your work very much easily, and you can complete your task within very much less amount of time. Thank you, students. Thank you all for the session. We'll be going to meet in the next class. Thank you all.